I'm Morgan Bennett, 28 years old, living in Portland, Maine. On Christmas Eve, standing beside our family's decorated fireplace with snow falling outside the bay windows, my father looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer his daughter. His words were cold and final, cutting through the sound of holiday music playing softly in the background. My sister Vanessa stood behind him, her face a perfect mask of hurt and betrayal, though her eyes gleamed with something else entirely: satisfaction. Before we continue, shout out your location in the comments. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. Our community is growing, and tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. The reason? She had convinced everyone, that I had stolen from her, that I had sabotaged her wedding plans, that I was jealous, vindictive, and cruel. None of it was true. But in that moment, with 20 relatives watching in stunned silence, the truth didn't matter. My father's hand pointed toward the door, his voice shaking with rage as he said the words that would change everything. "Get out of my house. You are not welcome here anymore." If it were you, would you defend yourself, knowing no one would believe you, or would you walk away with your dignity intact? Stay with me, because what happened next proved that sometimes the truth finds its way to the surface, no matter how deep the lies are buried. That was how my Christmas ended. The heavy oak door slamming behind me as I stepped into the December night, my coat still hanging on the rack inside. The cold hit me immediately, sharp and unforgiving. The porch light cast long shadows across the snow-covered lawn, and I could see my breath rising in white clouds. My hands trembled as I gripped the iron railing, not from the cold, but from the shock that was still coursing through my body. Behind the door, I could hear muffled voices, my father's deep tones still raised, Vanessa's higher pitch weaving through the conversation like thread through fabric, the clink of glasses being set down, the murmur of relatives discussing what they had just witnessed. For years, I had driven 3 hours from Boston to Portland for these gatherings. I had brought gifts carefully chosen for each person. I had helped my mother prepare the prime rib, set the table with the good china, and listened to endless stories I had heard a dozen times before. I did it all because part of me believed that family meant showing up, even when it was hard, even when I felt invisible. But tonight had stripped away that illusion completely. My place at that table had always been conditional, held hostage by Vanessa's whims and my father's unwavering favoritism toward her. I walked down the steps, my boots crunching through fresh snow that sparkled under the street lamps. When I reached the bottom, I turned back once. Through the frosted window, I could see the shapes of people moving around the living room. The Christmas tree stood tall in the corner, its lights twinkling red and gold. Not one person had followed me out. Not my mother, not my Aunt Linda, who had always claimed I was her favorite niece, not even my younger cousin Derek, who I had helped get through college algebra. A memory surfaced, unbidden and sharp. I was 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a science fair project spread out in front of me. I had worked for weeks on a model of the solar system, each planet carefully painted and labeled. Vanessa had burst into the room, tears streaming down her face, claiming I had ruined her ballet costume by spilling juice on it. I hadn't been anywhere near her costume, but my father had stormed in, seen the scene Vanessa had created, and without asking a single question, he had swept my project onto the floor. Planets rolled under the refrigerator, my poster board bent and torn. "Why can't you be more careful?" he had shouted. "Your sister works so hard and you just make everything difficult." Vanessa had smiled at me from behind his back. Even then, she knew exactly what she was doing. I reached my car parked along the curb, my silver Honda covered in a thin layer of snow. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and for a moment hope flickered. Maybe someone was reaching out, asking if I was okay. But when I pulled it out, the screen showed a text from Vanessa. "You really thought you could get away with it? Everyone knows what you did. Don't bother coming back." My jaw clenched. The urge to throw the phone into the snowbank was almost overwhelming. But instead, I shoved it back into my pocket. I unlocked the car and slid into the driver's seat, the cold leather biting through my thin sweater. I should have grabbed my coat. I should have said something, defended myself, demanded that someone, anyone, listen to my side. But I had learned long ago that my words carried no weight in that house. The engine sputtered to life, and I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, watching the house through the windshield. Inside, they would be gathering around the table now, serving dessert. My mother's famous peppermint cheesecake. Someone would make a toast. They would laugh, the earlier tension dissolving into the comfortable rhythm of family tradition. And I would be erased from the narrative, the problematic daughter who had finally shown her true colors. Tears burned hot against my cold cheeks. I let them fall, my grip tightening on the wheel until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just about tonight. It was about every moment I had bent myself into shapes to earn their approval, every achievement I had downplayed so Vanessa could shine brighter, every time I had swallowed my anger when she lied and I took the blame. I had graduated top of my class from Boston University with a degree in architecture. I worked at a prestigious firm designing sustainable buildings. I had my own apartment in Back Bay, paid my bills on time, and had built a life I was proud of. But none of that mattered to my father. To him, I would always be the daughter who made things difficult, the one who couldn't match Vanessa's charm, her beauty, her ability to make people love her. Finally, I shifted the car into drive. The tires rolled slowly over the packed snow, and I turned onto the main road. Street lamps stretched ahead in a golden line, leading me away from the house, away from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. As I passed the last familiar landmark, the old church where we used to attend midnight mass, I felt something shift inside my chest. It wasn't relief. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to chase their approval. I wasn't going to beg for a place at their table. They had made their choice, and now I would make mine. The road stretched out before me, dark and uncertain. But as the lights of Portland faded in my rearview mirror, I realized something important. I had spent 28 years trying to prove I belonged in that family. Maybe it was time to find out who I was without them. This story took hours to research and craft, so if you're enjoying it, a quick subscribe would truly make our day. Now, let's get back to it. The drive back to Boston felt endless. Interstate 95 stretched before me, dark and slick with patches of black ice that forced me to grip the wheel with both hands. My apartment waited 3 hours away, but the silence in the car was deafening. Every few miles, my phone would buzz from the passenger seat, lighting up the dark interior with notifications I refused to check. By the time I pulled into my parking garage in Back Bay, it was nearly midnight. The building stood quiet, most residents already asleep or away for the holidays. I trudged up to my third-floor apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped into the space I had carefully curated over the past 2 years. Modern furniture, plants by the windows, architectural sketches framed on the walls. Everything here was mine, untouched by my family's judgment. I dropped my keys on the counter and finally looked at my phone. 23 missed calls, 37 text messages. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through the names. Vanessa, Dad, Mom, Aunt Linda, even my cousin Derek. I opened the messages, my hands shaking. Vanessa, you've embarrassed this entire family. Everyone saw what kind of person you really are. Dad, I raised you better than this. How could you do this to your sister on Christmas? Mom, please, Morgan. Just apologize. You're tearing this family apart. Aunt Linda, I never thought you were capable of such jealousy. Your sister is heartbroken. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. Not one person had asked for my side of the story. Not one. They had all simply believed Vanessa's lies without question, just as they always had. I set the phone down and walked to my bedroom, peeling off my sweater and changing into pajamas. But sleep wouldn't come. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. Vanessa's tearful performance, my father's rage, the way my mother had looked away when I tried to meet her eyes. What had Vanessa told them? What lies had she spun this time? The next morning arrived gray and cold. I made coffee with shaking hands, the apartment still decorated with the small Christmas tree I had put up the week before. It looked ridiculous now, cheerful and bright against the weight pressing on my chest. My phone rang. Vanessa's name flashed across the screen. Against every instinct screaming at me to ignore it, I answered. Maybe this time she would slip up. Maybe this time I would finally understand what she wanted. "Morgan," she said, dripping with false concern, "I know you're upset, but if you just admit what you did, we can all move forward. Dad's willing to forgive you if you apologize to me properly." I gripped the phone tighter. "Vanessa, I didn't do anything. You know I didn't." She laughed, light and airy. "Oh, Morgan, everyone saw the messages you sent me, the nasty things you said about my fiancé, the way you tried to convince me to call off the wedding. You've always been jealous that I found someone who loves me." My blood ran cold. "What messages? I never sent you anything like that." "The screenshots don't lie," she said, her tone shifting slightly, an edge creeping in. "I showed everyone. Dad was furious. Mom cried for an hour. You really hurt us all." Screenshots? Messages I never sent? My mind raced, trying to piece together what she had done. Had she fabricated texts, photoshopped conversations? "You're lying," I said quietly, "and you know it." Her voice hardened completely. "Prove it. Go ahead, Morgan. Try to prove that you're the innocent victim here. But we both know no one will believe you. They never do." The line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear. She was right. She had always been right about that. In every conflict we had ever had, from childhood through adulthood, the family had taken her side. Her tears were more convincing than my truth. But something was different this time. This time, I wasn't going to let her win by default. I opened my laptop and began searching. If Vanessa had shown screenshots, then somewhere there had to be evidence of manipulation. I pulled up our actual text history. Mundane conversations about holidays, brief updates, nothing remotely resembling the accusations she had made. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. His voice boomed through the speaker before I could even say hello. "You will apologize to your sister by the end of today, or you are no longer part of this family. Do you understand me, Morgan? No longer part of this family." "Dad, please just listen." "I've heard enough. Vanessa showed us everything. The hateful messages, the lies you spread about James, the way you tried to sabotage her happiness. I won't have a daughter who behaves like this." "Those messages aren't real," my voice cracked. "Dad, she's lying to you. She's always lied." "Enough." The word cracked like a whip. "You have until tonight. Apologize or don't bother calling this number again." He hung up. I sat there, my breath coming in short gasps, tears streaming down my face. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in. For a moment, just a moment, I considered doing it, apologizing for something I didn't do, just to make it stop, just to have my family back. But then I remembered Vanessa's smile that night, the satisfaction in her eyes. No, not this time. I wiped my face and opened the voice memo app on my phone. If they were going to threaten me, if they were going to make demands, then I was going to document every word. I would record every call, save every text, screenshot every accusation. The phone rang again within the hour. My mother this time. I pressed record and answered. "Morgan, sweetheart." Her voice was softer, pleading. "I know you and Vanessa have had your differences, but she's your sister. She's getting married in 3 months. Can't you just let this go for the sake of the family?" "Mom, I didn't do what she's accusing me of. If she showed you messages, they're fake."
Why would she fake messages, Morgan? That doesn't make any sense. She's hurt. She's been crying all morning. Your father is so angry he can barely speak. You need to make this right. By lying? By admitting to something I didn't do? She sighed, the sound heavy with disappointment. Sometimes we have to sacrifice our pride for the people we love. Is being right really more important than your family? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to scream, yes, the truth mattered, that I shouldn't have to grovel for something I didn't do. But I knew it wouldn't matter. In my mother's mind, peace was more valuable than justice. I can't apologize for something I didn't do, I said quietly. Then I don't know what to tell you, Morgan. Your father meant what he said. The call ended, and I saved the recording with trembling hands. Over the next 3 days, the calls and texts continued. Vanessa alternated between sympathetic and vicious. My father sent ultimatums. My mother pleaded. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly felt entitled to weigh in, all of them convinced I was the villain in a story I hadn't even been allowed to tell. I documented everything. Every call recorded, every text screenshot, every voicemail saved. On the 4th day, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by my phone, my laptop, and a notepad filled with timestamps and notes. My eyes were swollen from crying, my head punding from lack of sleep. But beneath the exhaustion, something else was growing. Determination. I pulled up my contacts and scrolled until I found a name I hadn't called in over a year, Leah Torres. We had met during my first year at the architecture firm, bonded over late nights and impossible deadlines. She had left to go to law school, and we had drifted apart as lives often do. But I remembered her saying once over drinks after a particularly brutal project, "If anyone ever tries to screw you over legally, call me. I'm serious." My finger hovered over her name. Was this crazy? Was I overreacting? Then my phone buzzed with another text from Vanessa. "Tick-tock, Morgan. Time's running out." I pressed call. Leah answered on the 3rd ring, her voice warm with surprise. "Morgan, oh my God, it's been forever. How are you?" And just like that, the dam broke. I told her everything. The Christmas Eve confrontation, the fake messages, the threats, the recordings I had been making. The words poured out in a rush, barely coherent, but she listened without interrupting. When I finally finished, there was a long pause. "Morgan," she said, her tone shifting into something more serious, more professional. "This isn't just family drama. If she's creating fake evidence and using it to defame you, that could be grounds for legal action. And if your father is threatening to cut you off financially or from inheritance based on false accusations, we need to look at this carefully."
Hope flickered in my chest, small but steady. "You think I have a case?" "I think you need to keep doing exactly what you're doing. Document everything. And I think we need to meet. Can you come to my office tomorrow?" "Yes," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in days. "Yes, I'll be there." When we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, my phone still warm in my hand. Outside, the city moved on. Cars honking, people laughing, the world continuing as if mine hadn't just been turned upside down. But something had shifted. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was building a case. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my father. "Last chance, Morgan." I looked at it for a long moment, then I opened my growing folder of evidence and added it to the collection. They had drawn the line. They had made their choice. Now I would make mine. Leah's office sat on the 4th floor of a modern building in downtown Boston, all glass and steel with a view of the harbor. I arrived 15 minutes early, my messenger bag heavy with my laptop and a USB drive containing every piece of evidence I had collected. The receptionist offered me coffee, but my hands were already shaking too much to hold a cup steady. When Leah emerged from the hallway, she looked different from the exhausted architect I remembered. Her dark hair was pulled back in a professional bun, her navy suit crisp and authoritative. But when she smiled, I saw the same person who had stayed up with me until 3 in the morning, redesigning a commercial lobby because the client changed their mind at the last minute. Leah! She pulled me into a quick hug before leading me to her office. Let's see what we're dealing with. For the next hour, I walked her through everything. I showed her the text message history between Vanessa and me, months of bland, surface-level exchanges about nothing important. Then I pulled up my phone and played the recordings. My father's threats, my mother's pleas, Vanessa's alternating sweetness and venom. Leah's expression grew more serious with each recording. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen scratching across the paper in quick, efficient strokes. You mentioned screenshots, the fake messages Vanessa claims you sent. Have you seen them? No, she only told me about them, but she said she showed them to my whole family. Leah tapped her pen against the pad. We need to see those, because if she's fabricating evidence to damage your reputation, especially if it's affecting your relationships and potentially your professional life, that's defamation. It could even rise to the level of fraud, depending on what she's trying to accomplish. What do you mean, what she's trying to accomplish? Leah leaned forward. Morgan, people usually don't go to this much trouble just to be cruel. There's usually something they want. Money, property, control. Your father threatened to disown you, right? Is there an inheritance, a family business, anything of value at stake? My mind raced back through Christmas Eve, trying to remember if anything had been said beyond the accusations. Then it hit me. My grandmother. She passed away last year, and she left everything in a trust. It was supposed to be divided equally between Vanessa and I when we both turned 30. I turned 30 in 18 months. Leah's eyes sharpened. And if you were disowned, cut out of the family? I guess my half would go to Vanessa. Oh my God, this is about the money. Maybe. We don't know for certain yet, but it fits the pattern. She creates a scenario where you're the villain, gets your father to disown you, and she walks away with everything. Leah set down her pen. Here's what we're going to do. First, I need you to send a formal request to your family for copies of these screenshots. Don't accuse anyone of lying. Just say you want to see the evidence so you can address the accusations properly. They won't send them. Probably not. But we need to establish that you asked. If this goes further, we'll need to show you made good faith efforts to resolve it. Second, I'm going to reach out to a digital forensics expert I know. If Vanessa fabricated those messages, there will be metadata, timestamps, digital fingerprints that prove it. But we'll need the actual images to analyze. How do we get them if my family won't cooperate? We might have to subpoena them, which means this could get messy, Morgan. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my father's voice on the phone, cold and final, my mother's disappointed sighs, Vanessa's satisfied smirk. Yes, I'm prepared. Leah smiled, but it was the kind of smile that had steel behind it. Good, because we're going to need you to be strong. Keep recording everything. Don't engage with them emotionally. Keep it factual, brief. And Morgan, don't sign anything they send you. No apologies, no statements, nothing. Everything goes through me first. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in days, despite the coffee shop across the street being full of people laughing and enjoying the post-Christmas sales. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I didn't feel alone. That afternoon, I drafted an email per Leah's instructions. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I finally typed, Dad, Mom, and Vanessa, I would like to see the screenshots and messages you referenced. If I'm being accused of something, I deserve to see the evidence. Please send them to me so we can clear this up. Morgan.
I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came within 20 minutes. From my father. You know what you did. Stop playing games. You have until New Year's Eve to apologize or you're out of the will. Final warning. I forwarded it to Leah immediately, then saved it in my evidence folder. 2 days later, on December 28th, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me hit the green button. Morgan Bennett? The voice was female, older, uncertain. Yes? This is Patricia Shaw. I was your grandmother's estate attorney. I'm calling because I've received some concerning correspondence from your father regarding your grandmother's trust. My stomach dropped.
What kind of correspondence? He's requesting that you be removed as a beneficiary based on what he calls conduct unbecoming of the family. He cited a pattern of behavior including verbal abuse toward your sister and attempts to sabotage her upcoming marriage. Miss Bennett, I have to ask, are these allegations accurate? My hands went cold. No, none of it is true. My sister fabricated evidence and convinced my family I did things I never did. There was a long pause. I see. Well, the trust your grandmother created does have a morality clause. If a beneficiary is found to have engaged in illegal activity or behavior that significantly damages the family, the trustee, your father, has the discretion to remove them. However, the clause requires substantial proof. He doesn't have proof because it didn't happen. Miss Bennett, I'm required to conduct due diligence before any changes are made to the trust. I'll need to see the evidence your father is referencing, and I'll need to speak with you in person. Can you come to my office in Portland next week? Yes, absolutely yes. Good. I'll send you the details. And Miss Bennett, your grandmother specifically told me she wanted both her granddaughters to benefit from her legacy. She was very clear about that. I won't make changes lightly. When the call ended, I immediately called Leah and filled her in. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "This confirms it. Vanessa's not just trying to hurt you, she's trying to steal your inheritance. We need to move faster. I'm going to contact Patricia Shaw and offer to represent you in this matter. And Morgan, we need to find out if anyone else in your family knows the truth." What do you mean? Think about it. Vanessa shows everyone fake screenshots. But did anyone look closely? Did anyone question them? Or did they just accept her story because it fit their existing narrative? The question haunted me for the rest of the day. That evening, I scrolled through my contacts until I landed on my cousin Derek. We had always been close growing up. He was only 2 years younger than me, and we had spent summers together at our grandmother's lake house in New Hampshire. If anyone might listen, it would be him. I sent a text. "Hey, Derek, can we talk? Just the two of us?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "I don't know, Morgan. Everyone's pretty upset." "I understand, but I'm asking you to hear my side, please. Just coffee, 30 minutes. A long pause. "Okay, but I can't promise anything." We met the next morning at a cafe in Cambridge, halfway between Boston and his apartment in Somerville. He looked uncomfortable when he arrived, his hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. But he sat down across from me and ordered coffee, which felt like progress. I didn't do what Vanessa said I did. I started, no preamble, no small talk. She fabricated messages and showed them to everyone. I never sent anything hateful about James. I never tried to sabotage her wedding. She's lying. He shifted in his seat. "Morgan, I saw the screenshots. They had your name on them, your profile picture. Can I see them?" He hesitated. "I don't have them. Vanessa showed them to us on her phone Christmas Eve, but she didn't send copies." "Why not?" "I don't know. She was crying so hard and Uncle Richard was so angry. I guess no one thought to ask." I pulled out my phone and opened my actual text history with Vanessa. "Look, this is our real conversation. It's boring. It's bland. There's nothing there that even remotely resembles what she's accusing me of." Derek took my phone and scrolled through the messages, his brow furrowing. He spent several minutes reading, going back months. When he finally looked up, there was doubt in his eyes. "These don't look like they're from the same person she showed us." "Because they're not, Derek. She faked them, and now she's trying to get me removed from Grandma's trust so she can take my half." His face paled. "The trust? This is about money?" "I think so. Patricia Shaw called me yesterday. Dad's trying to have me removed based on Vanessa's accusations." Derek set my phone down carefully, his hands shaking slightly. "Jesus, Morgan, if that's true, if she really did this, that's insane. Why would she do that?" "Because she's always done this. You've known us your whole life, Derek. How many times has she lied and gotten away with it? How many times have I been blamed for things I didn't do?" He was quiet for a long time, staring into his coffee cup. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. There was something weird.
When she was showing us the messages, your Aunt Linda asked to take a screenshot to look at later. Vanessa got really defensive and said her phone was dying, and then she put it away and wouldn't show anyone again.
My heart pounded. Would you be willing to tell that to Grandma's estate attorney? Or to my lawyer? Your lawyer. He looked up sharply. Morgan, this is really serious. I know. That's why I need people who will tell the truth about what actually happened. Derek rubbed his face with both hands. I need to think about this. If I go against Vanessa and Uncle Richard, that's my family too, Morgan. They'll never forgive me. I know, and I'm not asking you to choose sides. I'm just asking you to tell the truth about what you saw, about what seemed strange. That's all. He stood up, leaving his coffee half finished. I'll think about it. That's all I can promise right now. I watched him leave, his shoulders hunched against the cold. It wasn't the ally I had hoped for, but it was something, a crack in the wall Vanessa had built around me. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. This is James, Vanessa's fiancé. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Boston Common. Come alone. I stared at the message for a long time. Vanessa's fiancé, the man I had allegedly tried to turn her against. Why would he want to meet me? I forwarded the message to Leah. Her response came quickly. Don't go alone. I'll be nearby. And for God's sake, record everything. The next afternoon, I sat on a bench near the frog pond, my phone recording in my pocket. James appeared right at 2 o'clock, tall and broad-shouldered with sandy hair and nervous eyes. He sat down without looking at me. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did you really send those messages to Vanessa about me? No, I said simply. I've never said anything bad about you. I barely know you. He closed his eyes. That's what I thought. Why? Because Vanessa showed me messages she claimed you sent. But the things in them, they were things only I had told her. Private things, about my past, about my family, things you would have no way of knowing unless she told you. And when I asked her how you knew those details, she got defensive and changed the subject. My pulse quickened. Do you still have those screenshots? No. She deleted them from my phone, said they were too painful to keep around. He finally looked at me and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Morgan, I think I've made a terrible mistake. I think the woman I'm supposed to marry in 3 months is not who I thought she was. I reached into my bag slowly and pulled out my business card. This is my lawyer's number. If you're willing to talk to her, to tell her what you just told me, it could help prove that Vanessa fabricated those messages. He took the card with trembling hands. If I do this, she'll destroy me. You don't know what she's capable of. Yes, I said quietly. I do. I've known my whole life. The meeting with Patricia Shaw was scheduled for January 4th in her Portland office. Leah drove up with me, her presence a steadying force as we navigated the slushy streets of my hometown. The law office occupied a historic brick building near the old port, its windows overlooking Casco Bay where ice had begun forming along the edges. Patricia Shaw was in her mid-60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been my grandmother's friend for over 30 years before becoming her attorney. When we entered her office, she stood and shook both our hands firmly. Miss Bennett, Miss Torres, please sit. She gestured to the leather chairs across from her massive oak desk. Behind her, filing cabinets lined the walls, and I wondered which one held my grandmother's trust documents. I've received several communications from your father. He's provided what he calls evidence of your misconduct. Before we discuss that, I want to hear directly from you what happened. I took a breath and started from the beginning. Christmas Eve, Vanessa's accusations, the screenshots I had never seen, my father's ultimatum, the threats that followed. As I spoke, Patricia took notes, her pen moving steadily across the page. When she finished, she set down her pen. And you have documentation of these threats? Leah opened her briefcase and pulled out a bound folder.
complete transcripts of recorded phone calls, text message screenshots, and a timeline of events. We've also identified a potential witness who can testify that the screenshots Vanessa showed the family appeared suspicious. Patricia accepted the folder and began reading. The silence stretched for several minutes as she reviewed page after page. Finally, she looked up. "Your father sent me printed copies of the alleged messages you sent to Vanessa. I'm going to show them to you now, but I want to note something first. In 30 years of legal practice, I've learned to trust my instincts, and something about these felt wrong from the moment I saw them." She slid several printed pages across the desk. I picked them up with shaking hands. The screenshots showed text message bubbles in the characteristic blue and gray of iPhone messages. My profile picture, an old photo from 2 years ago, sat at the top. But the words beneath made my blood run cold. "Vanessa, James is using you. He's after the family money. You need to call off the wedding before you embarrass yourself."
Your fiancé is a fraud. I've done research on his background. He's been engaged twice before and broke it off both times when he realized the women weren't wealthy enough. If you marry him, you'll regret it. He's going to cheat on you just like he did with his ex-girlfriend. I'm trying to protect you, but you're too stupid to see it. Message after message, each one more vicious than the last. My hands trembled as I read them. The cruelty in the words, the calculated attacks on James's character, none of it sounded like me. But the formatting looked perfect. The timestamps seemed real. If I hadn't known with absolute certainty that I had never written these words, even I might have believed they were authentic. "I never sent any of these," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Patricia, I swear to you, these are completely fabricated." "May I see your phone?" Patricia asked. I handed it over immediately. She opened my messages, navigated to Vanessa's thread, and scrolled through months of conversations. Then she set my phone next to the printed screenshots and studied them carefully. "The profile picture is different," she observed. "In your actual messages, you have a more recent photo, but in these screenshots, it's an older image. Also, the phone carrier and battery percentage are visible in these printouts, but they're inconsistent. This one says Verizon with 87% battery at 10:47 p.m. This one, supposedly sent 3 minutes later, says AT&T with 92% battery." Leah leaned forward. "Someone created these using a fake text generator. There are dozens of websites and apps that let you create realistic-looking screenshots. If we can get the original digital files that Vanessa showed the family, a forensic analyst can prove they're fabricated within hours." Patricia nodded slowly. "Unfortunately, your father only provided me with printed copies. He said Vanessa was too distraught to share the original files, which is convenient, since printouts can't be forensically analyzed the same way digital files can." "What does this mean for the trust?" I asked. Patricia closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. "Your grandmother's trust has a morality clause, but it requires substantial, verified proof of wrongdoing. These screenshots, even if they were real, show family conflict, not illegal activity. And given the inconsistencies I've already identified, I have significant doubts about their authenticity. I will not be removing you as a beneficiary based on this evidence." Relief flooded through me so intensely, I felt dizzy. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "However," Patricia continued, her expression grave, "I need to warn you about something. Your father is the trustee, which means he has certain administrative powers. While he cannot unilaterally remove you without my approval as the executing attorney, he can make your life difficult in other ways. He could delay distributions, create administrative obstacles, or challenge your eligibility through the courts. It would be expensive and time-consuming for him, and he would likely lose, but some people are willing to spend money out of spite." "Let him try," I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. "I'm not backing down." Patricia smiled slightly. "You remind me of your grandmother.
She always said you had her spine. She stood, signaling the meeting was ending. I'll send your father a formal response declining his request, and Miss Bennett, document everything. If this escalates further, you may need to pursue legal action of your own. As Leah and I walked back to the car, my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. I talked to James. He told me what Vanessa did to him. I believe you, Morgan. I'll testify if you need me to. I showed the message to Leah. She grinned. Now we're building something. With Derek and James both willing to testify about inconsistencies in Vanessa's story, we have corroboration. If your father pushes this any further, we can file a defamation suit against Vanessa and potentially seek damages. Would that actually work? If we can prove she knowingly created false evidence to damage your reputation and interfere with your inheritance, absolutely. And Morgan, there's something else we should consider. If she's done this to you, she might have done it to other people, past boyfriends, former friends, coworkers. People don't suddenly develop this level of manipulative skill. They practice. The drive back to Boston felt different than the journey up. Instead of dread, I felt something close to anticipation. For the first time, I wasn't just defending myself. I was going on the offense. That evening, I received an email from my father. The subject line read, "Final communication. Morgan, Patricia Shaw has informed me that she will not remove you from the trust based on the evidence provided. This is a travesty of justice and proof that this family's values mean nothing anymore. Your grandmother would be ashamed of what you've become. You are no longer welcome at any family gatherings. Your mother and I will not take your calls. As far as we are concerned, we have one daughter now. Do not contact us again. Richard Bennett." I read it 3 times, feeling the words hit me like physical blows. But underneath the pain was something unexpected. Freedom. He had severed the connection himself. I no longer had to wonder whether reconciliation was possible or torture myself trying to earn back their approval. They had made the choice final. I forwarded the email to Leah with a simple note. Evidence. Her response came quickly. Perfect. Keep it. Everything he sends from now on goes in the file.
2 days later, James called me. His voice was tight with stress. I told Vanessa I wanted to postpone the wedding, that I needed time to think. She completely lost it, Morgan. She started screaming, throwing things. Then she told me that if I left her, she would destroy my career. She said she had connections and she'd make sure no one in Boston would hire me. Did you record that? Yes. After our conversation, I started recording our arguments. I have 3 separate instances of her threatening me if I try to leave. James, you need to send those to my lawyer. This is exactly the kind of pattern we're trying to establish. I know, but Morgan, I'm scared. I'm supposed to marry this woman in 10 weeks. My family has already put down deposits. Everyone's excited. If I back out now and accuse her of fabricating evidence and making threats, it's going to be a nightmare. I understand, but you need to ask yourself, can you actually marry someone who's capable of this? Someone who would threaten to ruin you? He was quiet for a long moment. No, I can't. I'll send the recordings to Leah tonight. And Morgan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't see through her lies earlier. I'm sorry you've had to deal with this your whole life. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment and let myself cry. Not from sadness, but from the sheer exhaustion of it all. Fighting my own family, watching my sister's facade crumble, realizing that the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had never really known me at all. But when the tears stopped, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to my extended family. Not to defend myself or plead my case, but to set the record straight for anyone who cared enough to listen. To my family, I have been accused of things I did not do. I have been disowned based on fabricated evidence. I will not beg for anyone to believe me, but I want you to know the truth is on my side. If anyone wants to see the actual evidence, the inconsistencies in Vanessa's screenshots, the recordings of threats made against me, and the testimony of witnesses who saw through her lies, my lawyer's information is below.
I hope someday you'll be willing to look past the story you were told and see what really happened. Until then, I'm moving forward with my life. Morgan. I attached Mia's contact information and hit send to 15 relatives. Within an hour, my Aunt Linda responded, "How dare you continue this campaign against your sister? You're sick, Morgan. Get help." But 10 minutes later, my cousin Derek replied, "Thank you for sending this. I'm looking at everything with fresh eyes. I'm here if you need me." And that, I realized, was enough. Not everyone would believe me. Not everyone would care. But I didn't need everyone. I just needed the truth to be documented, the lies to be exposed, and the strength to keep walking forward. The rest would take care of itself. February brought a cold snap that turned Boston into a frozen landscape of ice and gray skies. I threw myself into work, spending long hours at the architecture firm, redesigning a sustainable housing project in Cambridge. My colleagues noticed I was quieter than usual, but no one pried. The clean lines of blueprints and the logic of structural engineering became my refuge, problems that could be solved with math and creativity instead of navigating the minefield of family dynamics. Leah called me on February 14th, Valentine's Day. James officially broke off the engagement yesterday. Vanessa's furious, and she's blaming you, naturally. But here's the important part. He's willing to give a formal deposition about the fake screenshots and her threatening behavior. We have enough now to file a civil suit for defamation if you want to pursue it. I stood at my office window watching people below hurrying through the cold with flowers and heart-shaped balloons. What would that actually accomplish? Financial damages, a legal record of her actions, and, most importantly, public acknowledgement that she lied. That won't undo the harm to your family relationships, but it would establish the truth in a court of law. That's not nothing, Morgan. How long would it take? Months, maybe a year. It would be expensive and emotionally draining. Your family would likely close ranks around Vanessa even more. You need to decide if pursuing justice is worth the cost. I thought about my father's final email, my mother's silence, the way Aunt Linda had called me sick. I need some time to think about it. Take all the time you need. But Morgan, whatever you decide, you've already won the most important battle. You protected your inheritance, you documented the truth, and you didn't let them break you. Everything else is just details. That weekend, I drove up to New Hampshire alone. My grandmother's lake house had been sold after she died, but the new owners were winter vacationers and the property sat empty. I parked along the main road and walked down to the shore, my boots crunching through crusty snow. The lake was frozen solid, a white expanse stretching to the distant tree line. This is where I had spent my happiest summers here, swimming off the dock with Derek, helping my grandmother pick blueberries for pies, sitting on the porch watching thunderstorms roll across the water. Vanessa had usually stayed inside, complaining about bugs and heat, but I had loved it here. I stood at the edge of the frozen lake and let myself remember my grandmother. Not the frail woman in the hospital bed during her final months, but the strong, practical woman who had taught me to fish and balance a checkbook and stand up for myself. She would have hated what was happening to our family. But she also would have understood why I couldn't just apologize and make peace. "I kept my promise, Grandma," I said aloud to the empty air. "I didn't let them take what you gave me. I fought back." The wind carried my words across the ice, and for a moment I could almost hear her voice responding. "Good girl. Now stop looking backward and start looking forward." When I returned to Boston Sunday night, I found an email waiting from Derek. The subject line read, "You should see this." Attached was a forwarded message, an email chain between several family members that Derek had been copied on accidentally. I opened it with trembling hands. The thread started with my father writing to Aunt Linda and two uncles. "Vanessa's wedding is off. James called it quits. She's devastated. I hope Morgan is happy now that she's destroyed her sister's life." Aunt Linda's response, "That poor girl. Vanessa must be heartbroken. Morgan has always been jealous of her." But then Uncle Paul, my father's younger brother who I barely knew, had written something different. "I don't know, Richard. I've been thinking about what Morgan sent us. Those screenshots Vanessa showed us at Christmas? Why didn't she just forward them in an email? Why only show them on her phone? And now that James has broken things off right after Morgan accused Vanessa of faking evidence, doesn't that seem suspicious? My father's reply was swift and angry. Don't you start doubting family loyalty too. Morgan has poisoned enough minds already. But Uncle Paul persisted. I'm not doubting family loyalty. I'm doubting a story that doesn't add up. I think we should at least look at the evidence Morgan's lawyer has before we completely write her off. The thread ended there, but Derek had added a note at the bottom. Uncle Paul called me yesterday. He wants to talk to Leah. I think he's starting to see through Vanessa's lies. It's not much, but it's something. I sat back in my chair, emotions washing over me in complicated waves. Not vindication exactly, but something close to it. One person, just one, was willing to question the narrative. The next morning, Uncle Paul called me directly. His voice was gruff, uncomfortable. Morgan, I don't know if your sister lied or not, but I've been thinking about my own daughter, about what I would want someone to do if she was being falsely accused. I'd want them to at least listen. So I'm listening. Tell me what happened. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Your father's not going to like this, but I'm going to talk to Patricia Shaw myself. I want to see those inconsistencies in the screenshots. And Morgan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't ask harder questions when Vanessa first made those accusations. After we hung up, I called Leah. I've made a decision about the lawsuit. I don't want to pursue it. Are you sure? We have a strong case. I know, but fighting Vanessa in court would take over my entire life for the next year. I'd be drowning in depositions and hearings and legal fees. And at the end of it, my family still might not believe me. Uncle Paul questioning things, Derek believing me, James getting away from her, that's enough. I'm not going to spend the next year of my life consumed by this. Leah was quiet for a moment. I respect that decision. But Morgan, if she comes after you again, if she fabricates more evidence or makes more false accusations, you can't just let it go. You have to protect yourself. I will. But for now, I'm choosing to move forward instead of looking backward. March brought warmer weather and the first signs of spring. Crocuses pushed up through the melting snow in the public garden, and the days grew longer. I joined a women's professional network in Boston and started attending their Thursday evening meetups. Most of the women were architects, engineers, and urban planners, people who spoke my language and understood my work. At one meetup, I met a woman named Iris, who had recently moved to Boston from Seattle. She was a structural engineer with a sharp wit and an easy laugh, and we bonded over our shared love of sustainable design. After the third meetup, she invited me to brunch. Over mimosas and eggs Benedict, the conversation drifted to families. Iris mentioned being estranged from her brother. He stole money from her mother and blamed me for reporting it to her financial advisor. The whole family took his side. It's been 3 years since I've spoken to any of them. I'm sorry, I said. That must be incredibly hard. It was at first. I felt like I'd lost my entire identity. But then I realized something. I was free. Free to build the kind of life I actually wanted instead of constantly trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it to me. She looked at me carefully. You have that same look I did 3 years ago, like you're carrying something heavy. So I told her, not everything, but enough. The Christmas Eve disownment, the fabricated evidence, and the fight to protect my inheritance. When I finished, Iris reached across the table and squeezed my hand.
Here's what I wish someone had told me back then. You're not responsible for fixing relationships other people broke. You're not obligated to keep reaching out to people who pushed you away. And most importantly, the family you're born into isn't the only family you'll ever have. You can build a new one. Her words settled into my chest like seeds waiting to sprout. In April, I received a letter in the mail. Not an email, an actual handwritten letter in my mother's careful script. My hands shook as I opened it. Morgan, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll ever forgive us, but I need you to know that I've been thinking about what happened at Christmas. Your Uncle Paul showed me the inconsistencies in those screenshots, and I can't stop seeing them now. The different phone carriers, the mismatched timestamps, things that should have been obvious if I had just looked closer instead of believing what I wanted to believe. I don't know if Vanessa lied. I don't want to believe she would do that, but I also can't ignore what's right in front of me anymore. Your father refuses to discuss it. He says questioning Vanessa is betraying the family. But you're my daughter too, Morgan, and I failed you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I should have seen all along. Mom. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an admission that Vanessa had lied, but it was acknowledgement, the first crack in the wall of certainty my family had built around their version of events. I tucked the letter into a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have that conversation. But not yet. The wound was still too fresh, the betrayal too deep. Instead, I called Iris and asked if she wanted to grab dinner. We went to a small Italian restaurant in the North End and talked for 3 hours about everything except family drama. She told me about a project she was working on, a bridge design that would reduce carbon emissions by 30%. I told her about my sustainable housing project and my dream of one day starting my own firm focused on environmental architecture. "You should do it," Iris said, her eyes bright. "Seriously, Morgan, life's too short to play it safe. If you want to start your own firm, start planning now." That night, lying in bed with my laptop, I created a new folder and labeled it Bennett Architecture and Design. Inside, I started a business plan document. Just notes at first. Ideas about sustainable practices, potential clients, funding sources. But with each word I typed, I felt something growing inside me. Not hope exactly, but possibility. By May, spring had fully arrived in Boston. The trees along Commonwealth Avenue burst into bloom and the city transformed into something green and alive. I celebrated my 29th birthday with Iris, Derek, and a few colleagues from work. No family, no drama. Just people who chose to be there because they wanted to be. Derek pulled me aside at one point during dinner. "I talked to Uncle Paul last week. He and Aunt Linda are coming around. They're starting to question Vanessa's story. It's slow, but it's happening." "What about my parents?" He shook his head. "Your dad's dug in. He's not budging. But your mom, I think she's struggling with it. She asks about you sometimes, how you're doing." "What do you tell her?" "That you're building a good life, that you seem happier than I've seen you in years." He paused. "Is that true?" I thought about my work, my new friendships, the business plan growing on my laptop, the way I no longer check my phone anxiously waiting for accusations or demands. Yeah, it is true. Summer arrived, and with it came news that Vanessa had moved to New York. According to Derek, she told everyone she needed a fresh start after the traumatic end of her engagement. My father had given her money to help with the move, a significant amount that made me wonder what had happened to her half of our grandmother's trust. I didn't reach out. I didn't try to reconnect or seek closure. Some endings don't come with neat bows and final conversations. Sometimes you just have to accept that certain chapters close with blank pages still left unwritten. In July, Patricia Shaw called to inform me that the trust would be distributing its first payments. "Your portion will be transferred next month on your 30th birthday as your grandmother specified. Despite everything that's happened, your father hasn't interfered with the administrative process. I think even he realizes that fighting this further would only cost him money he can't recover." When the money appeared in my account on my birthday, I sat staring at the number for a long time. This was what all the fighting had been about. This was what Vanessa had tried to steal, what my father had tried to use as leverage, what had ultimately torn my family apart. But to me, it represented something else. It represented my grandmother's belief in me. It represented the future I would build on my own terms, and it represented proof
that I had been strong enough to stand alone when it mattered most. I transferred $20,000 to the Women's Professional Network Scholarship Fund, another $10,000 to a legal aid organization that helped people fight defamation cases. The rest I put toward my business plan and a down payment on a small office space in Cambridge.
That evening, Iris brought over champagne and Chinese takeout. We sat on my apartment floor with the windows open, warm summer air drifting in. "To new beginnings," Iris said, raising her glass. "To chosen family," I countered. We clinked glasses, and as the sun set over Boston, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I realized something profound. I had spent 28 years trying to earn love from people who would never give it freely, and in losing them, I had found something more valuable: myself. My phone sat silent on the counter. No threats, no demands, no guilt trips, just peace. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. If it were you, would you be able to forgive a family that chose lies over truth? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to support this channel to hear more stories of resilience and new beginnings. Got 2 more amazing stories lined up for you. If you dug this one, you're gonna love what's next. Go ahead and click.